Every dam disaster ranked by fatalities explained. Taum Sauk Reservoir. Taum Sauk was a pumped storage hydroelectric facility on top of a mountain. On the night of December 14, 2005, the pumps didn't shut off. The reservoir overfilled. And at 5:16 a.m., the entire wall collapsed. 1.5 billion gallons of water blasted down the mountain at 60 miles per hour. The superintendent of Johnson's shut-in state park, Jerry Toops, was asleep with his family directly below the dam. His wife woke to a sound like a freight train. They had 4 minutes. They grabbed their 3 kids, ran to their van, and floored it. The water hit their house 30 seconds after they left. Total deaths, 0. Total damage, $1 billion. Here's what investigators found. The computer controlling the pumps had been malfunctioning for months. The operators knew. They documented it. But the fix never came. But warning time shrinks fast when dams fail in the middle of the night. And the next disaster had something impossible. They saw it coming and still couldn't stop it. Teton Dam. The Teton Dam was brand new, 305 feet tall, holding back 250,000 acre-feet of water. Federal inspectors had just certified it as safe. On June 5, 1976, the day after it was filled for the first time, cracks appeared. By 10 a.m., engineers knew it was failing. Police raced through the valley, going door to door. 30,000 people fled. At 11:57 a.m., the dam exploded. A 20-foot wall of water obliterated 3 towns. It destroyed 4,000 homes and 16,000 head of cattle. But only 11 people died. 11 deaths, 30,000 saved. That's what happens when you get the warning out. Except there's one thing nobody explained. The leak that killed it started in the foundation, from something that had been there since construction. The engineers never found it, because they never looked. Buffalo Creek. Buffalo Creek wasn't a real dam. It was a coal slurry impoundment, a pile of mining waste holding back millions of gallons of black sludge. 3 days before the collapse, residents reported seepage. The company sent an inspector. He declared it satisfactory. That was February 24th. On February 26, 1972, the dam gave way. 18 million gallons of coal waste blasted through the valley at 30 feet high. It buried 16 communities. Survivors described it as a black tidal wave that filled homes with mud so thick rescue crews couldn't dig people out. 125 people died. 4,000 left homeless. Here's what the company never disclosed. Internal memos show they knew the dam was unstable 6 months before. They calculated the cost of fixing it versus lawsuits. The lawsuits were cheaper, so they did nothing. Fundão Tailings Dam. On November 5, 2015, the Fundão Tailings Dam failed without warning. 43 million cubic meters of toxic mud buried the village of Bento Rodrigues in minutes. 19 people died. But the real damage was environmental. The mud traveled 668 kilometers downstream. It poisoned the Doce River, killed all aquatic life, and turned the Atlantic coastline orange. It contaminated drinking water for 250,000 people. Total cost, over $30 billion. The most expensive dam disaster in history. Here's what's disturbing. The last safety audit was 3 weeks before the collapse. The company passed. The auditor's name was never released, and they were never charged. 4 years later, the same company had another dam fail in the exact same region. Brumadinho Tailings Dam. Same company, same state, same type of failure. On January 25, 2019, the Brumadinho Dam collapsed during lunchtime. Workers eating lunch were buried alive. Rescue crews found the 259 bodies. 11 people are still missing. 272 deaths. No warnings. No cracks. The dam just collapsed. But survivors reported hearing a sound from inside the dam that morning, like cracking ice. They reported it to supervisors. They were told to get back to work. 40 minutes later, the dam failed. Those workers who reported the sound, most died in the cafeteria. The supervisors who dismissed them, most survived. They were in a different building. The company executives faced criminal charges. But as of today, not one has served jail time. Malpasset Dam. The Malpasset Dam in southern France was a masterpiece. A thin concrete arch designed by one of Europe's best engineers. On December 2, 1959, the left abutment shifted 2 centimeters, less than an inch. That tiny shift cracked the concrete. At 9:14 p.m., the entire dam shattered like glass. 50 million cubic meters of water exploded into the valley. The flood wave reached 164 feet high. It destroyed 2 towns in minutes. 423 people died. Here's what haunts engineers. Geological surveys found unstable rock beneath the left abutment before construction. The engineer knew. He chose to anchor there anyway because the alternative would cost twice as much. That decision killed 423 people. The official investigation called it unforeseen geological failure. But the survey reports tell a different story, one that was classified for 40 years. Vajont Dam. Here's the twist. The Vajont Dam didn't fail. It's still standing today. What failed was the mountain next to it. On October 9, 1963, 260 million cubic meters of rock slid into the reservoir at 110 kilometers per hour. The displacement created a wave 820 feet high, taller than two statues of Liberty stacked together. The wave shot over the dam and obliterated the towns below. The town of Longarone lost 1,450 of its 1,500 residents instantly. The dam didn't break, but 1,900 to 2,500 people still died. Here's what's never mentioned. Engineers had been measuring the mountain's movement for 3 years. They predicted, to within days, when it would collapse, and they never evacuated the towns below. Why? Because emptying the reservoir would mean admitting the dam was a failure. The dam cost too much to abandon. St. Francis Dam. William Mulholland built the Los Angeles Aqueduct, but the St. Francis Dam was his downfall. On March 12, 1928, Mulholland inspected the dam. He saw cracks. He saw seepage. He declared it safe. 12 hours later, just before midnight, the dam disintegrated. 12 billion gallons of water, a 140-foot wave, blasted down the canyon at 18 miles per hour. The wave was so powerful it tore clothes off victims' bodies. It traveled 54 miles to the Pacific Ocean. Over 431 people died. Bodies washed up as far south as Mexico. Mulholland's career ended instantly. He took full responsibility and never worked again. But here's what changed everything. In 2012, engineers re-examined the site. The cracks Mulholland saw weren't new. They'd been there since construction, covered with plaster and paint to hide them during the opening ceremony. Someone knew the dam was flawed from day one. That person was never identified. South Fork Dam. The South Fork Dam was privately owned by a club for Pittsburgh's wealthiest elite, including Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick. The dam was old and poorly maintained. The club lowered the spillway for better boating. They installed screens to keep fish from escaping. Both changes made failure inevitable. On May 31, 1889, after heavy rain, the dam failed. A 60-foot wave roared 14 miles and hit the town of Johnstown at 4:07 p.m. The debris piled against a railroad bridge and caught fire. People trapped in the debris burned alive while surrounded by water. 2,208 people died. 99 entire families wiped out. The club members were never held responsible. They claimed it was an act of God. But in 2005, a historian discovered a private letter in Carnegie's archives. He'd been warned 2 years earlier that the modifications were dangerous. He never responded. The letter has never been publicly released. Derna Dam. This one is recent. September 10th, 2023. 2 dams above Derna, Libya, failed during Storm Daniel. Storm Daniel dumped 16 inches of rain in 24 hours. At 2:30 a.m., the dams collapsed. 30 million cubic meters of water roared through the sleeping city. Entire neighborhoods swept into the Mediterranean. Buildings collapsed. Bodies washed out to sea. Official death toll, 4,540. But thousands more are missing. Some estimates put the real number over 20,000. Here's what nobody talks about. The Libyan government had been warned for a decade. International agencies offered funding for repairs. The government accepted over $30 million between 2012 and 2022. But the dams were never fixed. Where did the money go? Nobody has answered. Nobody has been charged. Machchhu-2 Dam. The Machchhu-2 Dam, near Morbi, India, failed on August 11, 1979, during a monsoon. The exact death toll is disputed. Official numbers, 1,800. Survivors say 25,000. Nobody knows because many bodies were never recovered. At 8:30 p.m., the dam failed. A massive wave hit the city of Morbi with no warning. Survivors describe seeing the city's lights go out all at once, then the roar of water, then darkness. Entire neighborhoods vanished. The flood washed thousands of bodies into the Gulf of Kampat. The Indian government suppressed information for years. No investigation was conducted. But here's what's truly disturbing. When floodwaters receded, villagers found entire wedding parties drowned in temples. Hundreds of people not counted in official statistics because they weren't registered residents. The real number? At least 2,000. Possibly 5,000. Nobody will ever know. The Indian government destroyed most records. The man who ordered the destruction was promoted 3 months later. Banqiao Dam. This is the deadliest structural failure in human history, and it wasn't just one dam. It was 62. On August 5, 1975, Typhoon Nina stalled over Hainan Province, China. In 24 hours, it dumped a year's worth of rain. The Banqiao Dam was designed for a 1 in 1,000-year flood. This was a 1 in 2,000-year flood. At 1 a.m. on August 8th, the dam began cracking. Operators tried everything. The sluice gates were jammed, spillways blocked, communications down. At 1:30 a.m., the dam exploded. A wall of water 33 feet high and 7 miles wide blasted downstream at 30 miles per hour. It hit the town of Dawencheng first. Population, 9,600. Survivors, 0. The entire town erased in seconds, but the flood didn't stop. It slammed into the next dam downstream. That dam collapsed. Then the next. Then the next. In 6 hours, 62 dams failed in a cascade. The combined floodwater created an inland ocean the size of Connecticut. The immediate death toll? 26,000 people drowned in the first few hours. But then the real killing began. The flood contaminated every water source. Cholera and typhoid spread. Crops destroyed. Livestock drowned. Famine followed. Over the next weeks and months, an estimated 145,000 more people died from disease and starvation. Total death toll? 171,000 people. Some estimates go as high as 240,000. More than Hiroshima. More than Nagasaki. More than the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami in a single country. And here's the worst part. The Chinese government covered it up for 30 years. The disaster wasn't publicly acknowledged until 2005. No memorials, no investigations. The dead were buried in mass graves and forgotten. When journalists tried to visit the graves in 2005, they were arrested. The graves are still there, unmarked, unvisited. And the dams that replace Banqiao? They're designed to the exact same specifications. The upgrade reports are classified,